Welcome in everyone to another Hawks Eye podcast. And today we're going a little bit earlier with the live show, but that's because we have a great guest coming on to talk Seahawks draft, where this team's at, one of the foremost individuals when it comes to draft breakdowns, understanding where these prospects are and how it can apply to the Seahawks and where Seattle may take some of the guys. We have guest Rob Staton joining us all the way over from the United Kingdom. He's going to come on. We're going to discuss all things Seahawks. It's going to be a great show. We're going to do a mock draft. And as well, we will get your guys' questions and comments that you have for Rob in on the show at the end. So before we get into that, though, if you haven't already, like, subscribe to the channel, click that notification button so you never miss an episode. But we'll get Rob in here right after this.
That's all we do, baby. It's our time.
Seattle defense continues to have a night. Their sixth sack.
First and 10 at the Seattle 44. Here comes the blitz. May. Kennedy tries to throw. Ball comes out. Going the other way with it. Turning upfield. Shannon through. And he scores. Touchdown. Play faking in. Sanders going to roll left. Looking. Sam throw. Back in the end zone. Is it caught? It's out. It is. Touchdown. Seahawks.
We did not care. It's about us. It's always been about us and what we do. And now we're going to the Super Bowl.
Well, here we go. We have guest Rob Staton joining us here on the Hawks Eye. Rob, I haven't talked to you for a while, and I know you got to actually go to the Super Bowl. So how was your Super Bowl experience and all of that?
Yeah, it was great. It feels like a long time ago now, but it was obviously a fantastic experience to go and watch the Seahawks win a Super Bowl. You know, very unexpected, really. I wouldn't have said a year ago that I would have been expecting to go to the Super Bowl to watch Seattle win. So it was a great turnaround last season and ended very strongly. It was great to see them win it. It was a comfortable win in the end, you know, on the day, which is fantastic because I suppose the neutral would have wanted a really exciting, close game. I was not asked about that whatsoever. I wanted to watch a beatdown. So it did feel like that. And yeah, great. And just sort of very much in the off-season mode now and seeing what could be done to try and get back there again because it's so difficult. Like there are so many teams who, they win the Super Bowl and they struggle to stay relevant over the next few years. So it's a big challenge coming up now in the draft and the rest of this offseason.
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing because for John Schneider here, Rob, he kind of almost gets a do-over after what happened, with the LOB and winning a Super Bowl so early in that process and then going back to another one and then watching that team slowly kind of deteriorate and how they manage contracts, how they even drafted. And so do you expect this time around for John to be very different than it was after that 2013 Super Bowl? Do you think the blueprint changes?
I don't know, because when I think back to 2013, it's kind of unfolding exactly how that offseason unfolded after they won the first Super Bowl. So they lost Golden Tate, they lost Breno Giacomini, they cut Chris Clemens. They understood that there was a lot of players they were going to have to pay. There were 2 years into Russell Wilson, 2 years into Bobby Wagner, 3 years into KJ Wright. There was a lot of other players that were coming up. Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas were coming up on their contract extensions at that point. So they were very wary of what was around the corner and not being able to do much in free agency, which they didn't. They did very little in free agency before the draft. And then they tried to fill holes. So with Breno Giacomini was replaced by Justin Britt in the second round. And Golden Tate was replaced by Paul Richardson at the top of the second round because they traded out the first round. So it does feel a little bit as if they're going to do the same again, that they're going to look at this draft and go, we need to replace Ken Walker. We need to replace Tariq Woolen and potentially replace Boya Mafe, although that could theoretically be done after the draft, I think, because I think the likes of Von Miller will still be available there. So that's, I think, what they will target to do.
So, when we look at this group, you've got, JSN's contract extension potentially looming here. You've got Devin Witherspoon's. They've let Reek Wolin go. Where for you, when you look at this blueprint of how they would go through this draft process, what are your top 3 priorities? If you're general manager John Schneider here, Rob, what are your top 3 priorities where you go, okay, we need to address these now that free agency's kind of rolled, gone through its course and there's not much left? What do you look for in the draft as the 3 main kind of focus points?
Well, I think the main thing you have to do is you have to make sure that you're not reaching for need. Now, I do think that they've done a good job this year, as they did pretty much in the last few drafts, actually, of matching up what the draft is and where the shelves are to what their needs are. So a year ago, taking Gray's Able rather than feeling like you had to do something in free agency to set yourself up for that draft, they were able to take Gray's Able. If it wasn't Gray's Able, it may have been Donovan Jackson, or it may have been one of the offensive linemen who were taken in the second round. They had 2 second-round picks, so they felt pretty confident of being able to address that. And I think this year you're looking at the draft and there's deep in cornerbacks. There are some pass rushers there. It is not deep at running back, though. And what they're going to have to do is piece the puzzle together. Like, where are you going to take the players to replenish your roster and fill out those needs and make sure you have the most rounded possible roster that you can get going into training camp? And that's what they're going to have to work out now. What's the order that you go and draft players? Because everyone will have their ideals. Like, there will be people on the internet who will say, I would never draft this position, or I don't like the idea of this player because he plays a certain position, or that's not my favorite player. I'd rather them go and do this because in this mock draft simulator, I was able to draft that person. It's not about that. It really is about, what does the board say? Is it, you may have to look at this and go, our best chance to actually get a running back that works and enables this offense to be good is to take that with your first pick. And everyone's going to go, I don't like it. Whatever. But that might be the best thing to do because the cornerback depth is very good. So then you might get the cornerback in round 2 or the cornerback in round 3. Alternatively, you may just get to a point where you get to the end of April and you think, there's no real value there at cornerback or running back or whatever. We're just going to take the best player available. I still think that's the best way of going about the draft rather than forcing anything. So I think you've got to stick to your board. It's stood them well over the recent history. There are definitely players in this draft who don't play like the most serious needs that just scream Seahawks to me. So I think that they have to be considered as well.
Yeah, and I know one thing, Rob, that I've heard you talk about on your show, and you've kind of heard it throughout the national media. I was down at Senior Bowl, and it kind of was even discussed there that this just overall isn't a great draft class. Like, there's spots in it where it's good. Like you mentioned, the depth at the cornerback position, and there's a couple others. For you, does that line up now better with what John's kind of doing? It almost feels like that coming out of that COVID, season draft where we only had the 3 picks. Do you expect John to add more picks in this draft or kind of load up more for 2027 or even use some of those comp picks he's acquired to maybe go and trade for players after the draft?
I mean, I don't know how easy it's going to be to acquire lots of extra stock or whether you'd even want lots of extra stock in this draft. Because I think one of the reasons that they traded the 4th and the 5th rounder for Rashid Shaheed is because they're probably looking at their board and thinking by the end of the 4th round, you're talking already priority free agents like that. And that's just the way it is. And if you trade down from 32 and let's say you drop down 7 or 8 spots and you might be able to get a 4th, you might be able to get only as much as a 5th. And you kind of think, well, what are you getting for that? Are you better? Is it worth the risk of getting the player that you'd rather have to go down unless the compensation is good enough? So I think it might be a challenge. I remember when they had 3 picks in 2021 and it was just assumed they're going to trade down, that they are going to make some moves. There's no way that John Schneider is going to pick 3 times in the draft. And he picked 3 times in the 2021 draft. Like, they didn't trade down. They didn't add any extra stock. They took a receiver, a gadget receiver, a cornerback, and a left tackle who's not really ever done much of anything in the later rounds. So that draft was pretty much a write-off. As it turns out, I don't think they're necessarily writing this off. I just get the real sense, Bryce, that a lot of teams are not looking at this draft and thinking. I think they're looking at it with a bit of a cringe on the face. And the Broncos trading for Jalen Waddle, who's not had a 1,000-yard season for in either of the last 2 seasons, is indicative of how you view this draft class. If you are a good team picking late on, that really that trade market, you want to exhaust all your options there before you get into this draft. And when the Seahawks are on the clock at 32, I don't think the options are going to be massively appealing.
Well, and we do kind of have an interesting history drafting later on past, pick 20 to 25. We don't exactly have the best success rate, Rob. We kind of talked a little bit about that off air, but you talk about, the LJ Collier type picks or the Jermaine Ifedis, like the list goes on and on, that at pick 32 and a little bit above, Seattle doesn't have a great history because you're almost drafting second round players in a lot of cases where you could trade back and potentially get 2 picks in the second round or an extra third round pick to acquire players in the right value. Do you see anybody that really stands out to you that pick 32 you look at and go, yeah, okay, I'm comfortable with the Seahawks taking that player and it's worth the value there?
I mean, it really depends who falls. I'm just having a look at the horizontal board now. I'm trying to find the sort of the realistic player who could fall to make it worth your while. I don't think there's any chance this guy falls, but people keep talking about Avian Terrell falling to 32. I really don't see much chance of that at all. That would maybe be one. I think that's pretty much it. I'm looking around now. It's hard. I mean, like the Jeremiah Loves are not going to drop, and it's just not very good. I find it. I kind of chuckle to myself because I understand why it happens, and like maybe that it's not anything more than just people wanting to be excited about something that's not very exciting. But I keep seeing like some of the draft analysts saying it's not a bad class, it's not a bad draft, and it's like, come on, man. Like you either don't really, you can't really believe that, or you're saying it because you just, I don't know, maybe you're not talking to the right people. And look, I know somebody in the league. Like I do know somebody who will say, there's never no such thing as a bad draft. Like you've got to make the most of it. Like that's just their mantra. I do kind of feel like that's something that you say to make sure that you keep working hard.
Yeah.
If you're in the league. Like there's no such thing that we've got to make the most of this. Come on. Like it's almost a little bit like you're 20 points down in the fourth quarter. Come on, we can still come back, But actually, the reality, the writing is on the wall. It's not a good draft. It's just not. Like there's going to be some players that teams take and the fans will get excited about them, but it's just not really,
So it actually leads me to an interesting question, because I know you've studied the draft. It's been your thing for years now. I go back to the 2013 draft and how a lot of people looked at that draft as not one of the better draft classes. It kind of was this black mark in that period of time. Do you think this class potentially has that same kind of situation where it's going to be looked upon, sandwiched between the other classes, and it's just going to look like a bad draft where you're going to look at it and go, yeah, that was one of the worst drafts in 10 years, potentially, just by the players that were available?
I don't know. I think it's a different draft to 2013. The thing about 2013 was that there was no quarterbacks at all to speak of. So you ended up having a conversation. This is all off the top of my head, about Eric Fisher and Luke Jokel potentially being the first overall pick. I mean, like that. We're not that quite at that stage. The problem with this draft is that it's almost just an accepted fact at this stage that Fernando Mendoza is going to be the first overall pick. And the problem I have with that is there's not really been much of a discussion about whether that is the right thing for Oakland to do. It's just become like the thing that everybody accepts happens. So, okay, you kind of take that on face value, but then you kind of look at the other teams and people don't really seem to be talking much about what these teams should do. They're just like quite content to place players in different areas. And as you're doing that, you're placing these players, and I'm looking across and I'm thinking that player wouldn't be in a top 10 pick in another year. That player wouldn't be a top 10 pick another year. That player wouldn't go in the top 20 in another season. And then you get into the teens, and typically there's always a bit of value to be had in the teens. And I think that will be the case again this year, that there will be one or two players who end up being pretty good who go in the teens. That's typically the case. I don't know why it happens. It's a weird phenomenon that you always can have like 2 or 3 players who get drafted between 10 and 22 who end up being pretty good. And then you get to sort of the back end of the first round. And again, there'll be teams. I'm looking, I like played around with a little mock draft myself earlier. And so I kind of do it just to sort of play with ideas and thoughts about where players could go. And I was looking sort of mid-20s. You start thinking, oh, effing hell, this is tough. Like, I can put players there, but if I was that team, like I'd be thinking, oh, like, we have to take somebody, I guess, so we'll take him. And then you get to Seattle's pick and you just think, my word, like it's tough. It's really tough. And we just have to embrace it is what it is. Like it's a tough class. I did the horizontal board and I started quite early. So when I did the summer scouting, I never used to do this, but do the summer scouting and then you start the college football season and you start sort of forming your opinions and you start building your board, and it starts off with about 10 or 15 players quite early on, and then it builds up to about 50 after about 2 months. And then you sort of structuring the board and doing all of those things. And by the end of the season, when the players have to make a decision on whether they're going to declare or not, I had to take 41 players off the board because they went back to school. And these were all players who, would have been drafted. And a lot of them were actually, would have gone in the first 3 rounds. And they're going back next year. So already the draft's thick. It doesn't mean that next year's necessarily going to be loaded in the round 1 and everyone's going to be happy, 31st round graded players, nothing like that. It just means that the thickness, like when you get to sort of 3, 4, 5, those rounds, you can have players there that you think, I want picks in that area, which is why the Seahawks and other teams are protecting their comp picks. Now we'll see. There are some real stars who are going to be in the next draft that are going to go very early. We're not quarterbacks, and I think the quarterback class is already being overrated a little bit for next year, but we'll see how that goes. But there are some stars at receiver, pass rush, who are going to go very early next year. There's one cornerback in particular stands out at Notre Dame. So you've got some players there. That's the benefit of the next draft. This one, it's just thin. Like when we get to 96, I think the Seahawks are going to be struggling a little bit, and then we'll see. I still think if there's a trade to be done, they should seriously consider it, like the Broncos have done, because I want to see the Seahawks win. Like for me, it's about getting the championship winner. You've got to win. Like they're not building something here; they are replenishing, and they have the roster. They have a Super Bowl winning roster. It's about getting that little bit better to make sure that you can be up there again next season.
Well, and so that kind of goes into our next topic here, Rob. From your perspective, the free agency period's now over. When you look at what Seattle did, they did a lot of keeping their, bottom bit of the roster together. They just signed Cody White. You brought in back Chaz Surratt. You brought in Brandon Peely. You kept a lot of those guys. Now, yes, we lost Mafe and some starters. How did you look at Seattle's free agency? And then again, with the impact of what they've lost. So we're looking for a running back. Potentially, we're looking for another edge player to come in and help. We're looking for another corner. Does that match up for you in some of the better areas where there's a little bit more depth in this draft? Or do you think it's a situation where Seattle's really going to replenish? They may have to make a trade to replenish one of those positional groups.
Well, I think definitely at cornerback, you've got numbers there. So, I think for me, I really like Avian Terrell. And I think he's a good player. I think Mansour Delane, I need to see him run a 40 and do some jumps. Like he didn't do anything at the combine. The guy's already got 30-inch arms. There was a few concerns about his speed. If he doesn't run, I'm going to be thinking, do you know what? That'd just put me off a little bit if he doesn't run. You've seen players not running, that's fine. But when there's a question mark about whether they are fast enough, I need to see a 40. And he's not done anything yet. So you got him, Jamon McCoy, equally, he's not done a thing for like 2 years at this stage. That's a concern with the injuries. Apparently teams are pissed off with his agent. His agent is somebody who seems to have running battles with teams quite often these days. He seems to call bloggers every now and again as well to complain about their articles about Earl Thomas holdouts as well. So Colton Hood's decent. Chris Johnson, decent. When I talk about the Paul Richardson pick, I kind of feel as if those level of players feel very much like that's the kind of thing you're going to end up getting if you take one of these cornerbacks, which is fine. Paul Richardson was a one contract player who contributed and did a job. He caught a touchdown in a playoff game. Like he's somebody who will be there, and he's not necessarily going to be a star core player, but I kind of feel as if the Hoods and the Johnsons kind of fit into that sort of territory, which is not going to excite many people, but that's the reality of it. And then at pass rush, I just think it's an overrated group. across the board. There's numbers there, but all of them have got some kind of fatal flaw. Like if you look at even David Bailey at the top end, it's not got a typical frame. His change of direction is a bit sluggish. Like it's quite hard to watch him change directions sometimes. So a bit of a one-year wonder as well. Cassius Howe practically plays without arms. Romello Height is in his mid-20s already and did not have the kind of testing numbers that you'd ideally see for someone who's 239 pounds at the combine. And I think he probably guzzled a lot of water before he got on those weighing scales, by the way. TJ Parker is just not speedy twitch. He is like, he's going to run straight into you. He's going to try and straight arm you, and he's going to try and play off that. He's not going to try and hit that outside shoulder, bend and straighten that often. And when he does try that, it doesn't seem to go very well. Malachi Lawrence has got that sort of quickness, the speed. He's fast. He was timed faster than anybody else in college football amongst these pass rushers last year in the GPS. But, you know, he equally has got a bit of change of direction, loses his balance when he tries to turn the edge. Run defense is a bit of an issue there. You kind of like, you're looking at him, you're saying he's a traits player. He's one of the few players that's traits players. But how early do you take somebody like that? Like, because typically that would be that's a solid third rounder. And like he was saying, he may go in the top 50. It probably will go in the top 50. R. Mason Thomas, small. No testing profile for someone that small. Yakus hasn't run. Josephs hasn't run. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of guys there.
Yeah.
Zion Young. I know I'm just kind of reeling off names here. Zion Young, DWI, about 6 weeks before draft season begins. You know, sounds like, in certain interviews, sounds like he's completely off his TITSs. And then you've got, your guys like Akeem Mesador, older, injury history, surgery on both feet. To me, that's just an area where you could convince me on a few of these guys, but it's more quantity than quality. It's why I think they might wait till after the draft, depending on how the board shakes out. And then running back, good luck. You've basically got Jadarian Price, Mike Washington, I think. I know that there's a lot of buzz around other players. Maybe we'll talk about the running backs, Bryce, in a bit, and I'll shut up for a second. But there's definitely a thinness to this running back group, I would say.
Yeah, so it's interesting because obviously, down at Senior Bowl, I got to see some of the edge players play, Jackus, I got to see Parker, I got to see Zion Young and Derek Moore. And those two particularly were the two that kind of really stood out. And it wasn't because they were fast or twitchy or anything. It was because, they were just stronger than some of the tackles they were going up against, unless they were going up against Dunker. And Dunker was one of the few guys that could really handle them and stonewall them a lot of the time. And I think that's why Dunker's got a lot of the upsell in his draft stock to a point this year. But I agree with you. Being in Mobile, like really some of the corners stood out, like Chris Johnson and Colton Hood were there, and you could see that they're level. But I agree with you. Like, it's a very limited class. Like, it really falls off a cliff rather quickly. There's no gradual decrease. It's like you miss your window and certain groups just dive bomb off the side of a cliff to where you're getting guys that really should be 6th, 7th, or UDFAs that may go in the 4th or 5th.
Can I say so? So I'm just trying to manufacture a cup of tea out of my wife. While I can see the cat. It's very British of me. I can she's making one next door, so I'm thinking, I'll join that party. So I'm trying to get a message to her. So the one thing I wanted to say though is I don't know how when you were there, so maybe you can kind of get a flavor for this, or maybe it's something that people can look out for. I think the pass rushers are either told or know what to do at this Senior Bowl now. And I think when they see the Mike Green play from last year, where all he did, the 1v1s are set up to really benefit the defensive players. And if they just run, if I ran straight, if I ran straight into another human, and all of my forward energy was driving into that person, and they're just stood there, and there's no one helping them out, and it's not an actual football play, where you've got to guess what the play is. It's just like, no, I need to get to there, and you're in the way, and I'm just going to run straight into you. Now, the chances are you're going to move, okay? But when you're talking about like top athletes going against each other, and so often the defensive players are more explosive than the offensive linemen, they've just learned, if I just run straight into you and knock you over, I'm going to be trending on Twitter tonight. And
Yep.
and that's what they're trying to do. So I was watching the Senior Bowl this year. I just thought everybody's trying to be the guy who pushes someone over, essentially. And then it
Pretty
happened with
much.
Zion Young. It happened with the guy at Michigan, who everybody like, whoa, look at the guy. What's his name? Derek Moore. Hey,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Like, let's just go and run through the tape, and I'll show you a lot of average stuff. Like, but he ran through somebody at the Senior Bowl, so now he's like a second round pick or something. Like, there's a lot of that going on. And what you used to see at the Senior Bowl, so I've been watching it for nearly 20 years, is that there would be that sort of that speed rush would go, I need to beat this guy off the edge. So like you would see them setting up the tackles. So they would maybe sort of try a basic outside rush, then there'd be an inside counter to try a bit of speed to power. I'm going to show the teams that I can do a little bit of everything. I might lose a rep to win a rep. You know, you did see a lot of that now. Oh, not anymore. It's just, I'm going to run straight into you and hope that I can push you over. And if you do, everyone's going to say, he's like Mike Green a year ago. And it's become the equivalent of the quarterback at the pro day in the shorts, running away and then throwing back across his body to thin air. And everyone going, oh, what a pretty throw. From all those quarterbacks who did the square root of F all in the NFL, but could have a good pro day in that regard. This is a problem for the event and for the analysis of the event, because everyone's just trying to push somebody over now.
So it was really interesting when I was there. I got a chance to sit and talk with a couple O-line coaches that were from colleges around there and stuff, just watching their guys. And one of the things, that they even said, they said the one-on-one period, all it is pass rush. And they go, the problem is they said, the one thing that when you look at these edges, you need to know if they can play on the rundown. And they said how this drill should advance is you don't get to decide it's a pass-only situation. It could be a run, and that O-lineman could fire out at you in a run block set, and you've got to be able to handle it. Can you actually engage and set the edge? You don't just get to work on bull rushing a dude and showing you're more powerful when, to your point, Rob, you're just running straight into him. And they said that's the problem now is, to your point, guys aren't countering, but they're also not being challenged to, because guess what? You're never going to know if it's a run or the pass in the NFL. Only a few times will you hedge your bet and be like, hey, it's 3rd and long. They're probably not going to run the ball. But most of the time, you've got to be able to play both and still be an effective edge player. And yeah, that was the one thing I got told numerous times by a bunch of coaches. There was like, hey, like this drill needs to evolve. It needs to replicate more real football type situations so we can see if these guys can actually play enough consistently to be worth the pick that they're going to be taken at.
Well, there was a play at the Senior Bowl this year where the Washington offensive lineman, Carver Willis, who I'm quite fond of, shot out of his stance in a scrimmage and absolutely hammered Kean Sloan. And that was an act of like, this is what can happen when an offensive lineman can get out there and play a play. And because it was a scrimmage, it wasn't a pass rush drill. So he got out there and he absolutely smashed him into the turf. But then, there was a moment when Nadeem Tucker pushed, Nadeem Tucker's about 230 pounds. Like he's not much heavier than like me. And he just kind of ran out there and pushed him over. And you kind of think this is the problem with these drills now. I definitely think we need to sort of be mindful of that. Like I still enjoy the 1v1s, and they're a big part of Senior Bowl, and they're great fun to watch, and they are. But I mean, maybe it's just because I'm getting older. Like I'm now 41. Like when I started doing Seahawks Draft Blog, I was in my 20s. Like, and I'm sat here now as a 41-year-old man, and I'm kind of like looking on X, and I sit there, and I'm like seeing there's like 1 million people now talking about this. Like it used to be that just be like a handful of people would talk about the draft. Like every freaking person's talking about it now, and they're all going, look at this amazing rep. And I'm sat there going, that's not an amazing rep, but what am I going to do? Like, if I respond to this, I look like an arse. So like, I'm just going to leave it. And then, but then I see it again and again. And then it filters into sort of the national conscious. Then all of a sudden, like they're talking about this play at the combine with Daniel Jeremiah and Rich Eisen. And then, oh my word. And then people just pick up these opinions. Like they say stuff on the draft shows or the combine shows, and people just attach those opinions as their own. And these spread like wildfire. And before you know it, this legendary play at the Senior Bowl is taken on a life of its own. And again, like you've got to take these things with a pinch of salt, like the especially those sort of specific pass rush 1v1s.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree.
Be very careful. But I want to go out there. It's one of my dreams. It's very difficult for me to get to. One, to get to Mobile from England is like very difficult. Two, it coincides with my daughter's birthday, so I think she's going to be a lot older before she accepts Dad's not here. She's 9. Like, I don't think she's going to accept Dad's not here. He's buggered off to the Senior Bowl. Like, that's not going to go down well. So, yeah,
I can definitely tell you from the West Coast, it's not an easy place to get to Mobile. You got to take 2 connecting flights, and you're flying into the small little airport, and it's a interesting little community there. But it's going to be interesting. Now, I want to ask you this about before we move off this topic here on the free agency part of it, Rob, and that is obviously, you did a show yesterday, which if anyone hasn't, go check out Rob's quick little show that he did yesterday about the Devon Achane possibility and why it makes sense. But I've kind of leaned into that same philosophy a little bit, Rob, with pick 32, if that's what it would take, and maybe, something else potentially to get Achane and then give him the contract extension. And I see a lot of fans push back going, well, you should have paid Walker then if you're going to go and do this route. For me, I don't see them as similar players. I see them as 2 very different players. It's like the A+, or I'll put it this way. It's like the Amazon purchase versus the Temu and Wish purchase in a way where you get a similar product, but one's just a little bit more reliable. And when I look at Ken Walker, I look at it in the sense of, yes, Ken's explosive. He adds stuff, and we saw a great back end to this season from Ken, but there are injury concerns going into the season. He had to timeshare the majority of it to stay healthy for the back end of the playoff run. And you look at Devon Achane, and he's probably one of the most explosive players in the NFL. And so I want to get your thoughts as like, even after you did your show to now, how much more are you in that boat of, hey, this makes a lot more sense for the Seahawks to do this, especially with this running back class being kind of thin as it is?
Devon Achane is an unbelievable player. And it became very evident to me yesterday that people don't realize how good Devon Achane is. And if you actually go and watch some, like, I think there's like a 15-minute YouTube video if you need a flavor of how good he is, which is on there and shows some of his runs. Like his burst, if he gets any kind of an angle or a crease, he gets through it, and it's like a 50-yard touchdown run. Like it's just unbelievable. Like the plays that he's capable of making, he does things that other running backs can't do in the NFL. And then you think, well, okay, that's fair enough. Like if he gets outside and he turns the corner and he gets free, or he takes a screen pass and he gets the block in, this guy runs through the middle and sifts through traffic and finishes his runs at 190 odd pounds and will get you like big explosive plays running up the gut, as well as like, he's just a freak of nature. Like he is just, there is not, as the tea is now being delivered. So I'll just grab that. Thank you very much. Okay, so the quality of the player is just truly unbelievable. And then, with the greatest respect to Ken Walker, he's not on that same level. Like Achane is there with Bijan Robinson. He's that kind of talent, and he's 24 years old still. And if you were able to bring Achane to Seattle, I think like good luck to the rest of the NFC West, because that's an upgrade. It's not, and this is not disrespectful to Ken Walker at all. If it sounds it, I really massive amount of respect for Ken Walker and what he did at the end of the season. I like Ken Walker as a player, but it's all about levels. Like there are good receivers in the NFL, but they're not Jackson Smith and Jigba or Puka Nacua or Jamar Chase. And Devon Achane is up there. Achane is up there with the very, very best. And I don't think 32 would be an overpay at all. And if you're saying, well, just pay Ken Walker, well, you're talking about the levels of the player there. I think you could just keep Achane this year, and then, you could assess it in 12 months. You've got the franchise tag at your disposal. He would be a bargain for me if you could time down for $14 to $15 million a year. He's that good a player. I'd have no problem with it at all. I thought there was a little bit of a hysterical reaction to that yesterday. Like it was just like, no, you can't do that for a running back. It's running back. And there's that kind of stigma with the position. But no, look, listen, if you could go back in time and say, hey, Marshawn Lynch for the 32nd overall pick in 2010, would you do it? Yeah, you would, because that set you up for years of success. So I'm down for a bit of Achane.
Well, and the thing I look at too is the philosophy of this team. And even with the offensive coordinator that we have brought in Brian Fleury, like they want to run the ball, and you are bringing a running back in that is very, very comfortable, and you've seen be very, very successful in this scheme. Mike McDaniel runs the same run scheme that Shanahan runs in San Francisco. It's not like, okay, we're bringing this guy in, how's he going to fit in? Like, you have an idea of how this player is going to effectively work within this scheme. And that also allows him to play a little bit more freely than some guys that get traded, where it's like, okay, I got to figure out all these different things. He's already got such a base of knowledge within this scheme. I'm in the same boat. I look at it this way and go, there's not a running back outside of maybe Love in this class that I would consider on the same level as Achane. And this is why I'd be comfortable making that trade as well. And going, yeah, you know what, if that's my 32nd overall pick is Devon Achane, I'm going to be okay with that. That adds something to your point that scares the rest of the NFC, if not the whole NFL, that Seattle's now got a very explosive home run hitter at running back to go along with Rashid Shaheed and JSN and a good tight end room and a very good quarterback in Sam Darnold. And not to mention an offensive line that is coming back with basically everybody that they had last year for continuity's sake.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? They don't have many needs. Like if it was it's very evident that the Patriots have quite a few needs. Like when you watch them in the Super Bowl, you could say, well, look, they're in the Super Bowl, but they have a lot of things that they need to do with their roster. And then you would look at sort of the teams. Like I still think that there's many teams in the AFC like who've got like quite a handful of needs here. And then you look in Seattle and you think, yeah, you know what? They need a cornerback at some point. But Reek Willen was massively inconsistent and played very well at times and played like a bonehead sometimes as well. And, Josh Jobe, they're very comfortable with him. He's hardly a flawless player. So I don't think they're looking for flawless, unlimited talent at cornerback here. They just need somebody that can coach up and do a job for them. And then with the pass rush, I still think, look, all of this Von Miller stuff, like Von Miller still on limited snaps had a productive season last year. So this, he is one of those unicorn players who could probably play until he's 50 years old and still get you a sack. So I think that he would be a useful situational pass rusher to replace Boya Mafe and still bring a bit more juice maybe than Mafe did in those key downs, trying to get Matt Stafford down and not let him score another 40 points on your ass. So that's another thing there. It's the running back really where I think you're going to suffer it, because if you go into camp with just, hey, maybe Emmanuel Wilson will work out, or maybe George Alani can play, or maybe Zach Charbonnet is going to be back, that's a big question mark there. And if you could fill that with, we'll just fill that hole with one of the best players in the NFL, then I suddenly you're going out there and you think we've got everything we had last year, and now we've got this guy. But the problem is it sounds like the Miami Dolphins legitimately don't want to move him. Like they think, we've siphoned off enough talent now, and understandably, if they look at him and go, this guy is special. Like, we need this guy. Like, this is not the kind of player that you trade away. And I tend to agree with that. Like, if I'm them, I'm thinking, keep
keep him in house.
and it looks like that's what they're doing. So maybe the Dolphins are not going to be a shambles moving forward anymore.
Well, and you just signed Malik Willis to come in, and it's like, okay, we've given away Waddle, but let's not give away the real weapon in having an effective running game for our quarterback here that we haven't seen necessarily been a high volume passer with success rate. Like, let's actually temper the expectations on our quarterback by having a running back to give the ball to that can affect the game and change it. But Rob, let's look at, I want to get your thought. Give me 5 Seahawks who you think, or 5 potential Seahawks in this draft that you think are some guys that people should have their, circle or potentially have kind of bookmarked as guys that could potentially be fits for them come the draft day.
Well, do you just want the obvious ones, or do you want we're talking about need positions here, or because
dealer's choice? You give us as many as you want there, Rob.
Okay. So, because I will warn you that once I start going off on one, you'll have to sound the alarm if it's going too far.
All right, go for it.
The thing is, the problem with these things is you end up sort of treating these people like you know them personally by the end of this process, right. And then when they go and play for other teams, and you're like, yeah, they play for the Rams now. But you do become attached to them. So let's start with the main positions. I do think Jadarian Price is a real strong possibility for the Seahawks at 32. And we've been talking about this for probably about 3 weeks to a month now on Seahawks Draft Blog. And I feel as if, Daniel Jeremiah's mocking that now. I do think that Price has got enough talent to be like a 1A with a 1B. I don't think he's necessarily somebody like Jeremiah Love who can just be the offense, or an Achane or a Bijan, but he's somebody who can fill the void by Ken Walker, I suspect, and do a decent job for you. High character, stayed at school, did not transfer when he had offers and opportunities to do that. Very high character. So I think Jadarian Price is certainly one of those. Moving on to other positions, and then there's some later round guys that I'll bring up as well. Other positions, I think at cornerback there are a handful of guys. Chris Johnson is, smart, tough, reliable. That's what they're after. Problem with Chris Johnson is his cushion is so deep, and he still gets beat sometimes. And then you kind of watch that and thought, has he got a speed problem there? Like, and the expectation was like he's probably run a 4.55 at the combine, and then he runs a 4.40 or something. And you're like, well, where did that come from? So now is there a fix here? Is there something? Is there a hitch? Is there something in his sort of back pedal that we can work on? Is it just systems he was playing against? Like, what is the problem that enables that he has this thick cushion and still gets beat from time to time? But his understanding in zone, you can sort of see him sort of like, there's a couple of cornerbacks in this class who, like, you can see them like looking at different defensive backs, reading the play, and then making the right decision. And like, it's such a cool thing to see when you see that consistently on tape. And he was one of the players who did that. And I know that Brian Baldinger thinks he's the best cornerback in the draft. So there will be some people who feel that way, absolutely, and there'll be others who perhaps feel he's more of a day two type. But he's definitely in that smart, tough, reliable category. There's a whole bunch of other cornerbacks that I could mention here. I think Traden Stukes is somebody who is really, really like Seahawks. If they wanted a super fast, versatile chess piece who I think can play free safety, I think can play sort of deep high. I think you can move him around as well. He played predominantly in the slot for Arizona, but he's somebody who can move around and can make a ton of plays for you. He's an older player though, 6 years in college. He's a very good player. Who else? I love Hezekiah Masters, Chandler Rivers, very competitive cornerbacks.
Big really fan stood of those out. Two. So Rivers really stood out to me at Senior Bowl. Like he was one of the guys for me, Rob, that I like had circled after about day 2 there, and I went, this is a guy to me that I think could play in the Seahawks system.
I really like him. And here's the thing: is I know a lot of people like D'Angelo Pons. I kind of watched Pons and thought, size is really bothering me here. Like, I'm watching too many games where like the taller receivers are getting on him a little bit, and he's scrappy and he's competitive and he makes plays, and I appreciate all of that. But I'm just sort of projecting to the next level here, and I'm just seeing too many times where I think the size looks like a bit of an issue. And then I watch Chandler Rivers, who's not that much. So he kind of he's marginally taller, but kind of looks different on tape, and he's competing outside with these taller receivers, and it's not anywhere near as much of an issue for me when I'm watching the tape. So that when I actually go and check on the height, I'm surprised that he's as small as he is. So he was somebody who I was really interested in watching. But there's a few of these cornerbacks. I mean, look, that it is a deep cornerback class. I think Jalen Kilgore, who they've having him for an official 30 visit, is just a freaking beast. I mean, like, you just have to look at the guy. Like, he looks like a Seahawk. Like, you just look at him. He's a freaking Seahawk, like, to look at him. Kyle Lewis, the linebacker at Pittsburgh, is like a first man in, last man out defensive hurricane. Like, he's just a tremendous player to watch. I loved watching him, and he's one of them. Like, I don't really like. I kind of spotted him quite early in the college football season. I love the fact that he now gets talked up so much because he deserves it. Like, he's just a fun player to watch. There's a couple of linebackers, like Keyshawn Elliott's another one like that. Keyshawn Elliott's such a freaking fun player to watch at Arizona State. Like, he's a Seahawk. He's another player I should mention. He is somebody who's going to hit you in the face. And people go, oh yeah, but he's like a spot drop linebacker. He doesn't move around too much. And I'm watching the tape and I'm thinking, he's not that much of a problem here. Like, he's certainly not going to be Sonny Styles in his drop. Yeah, but he's not. It's not like we're watching. We've asked Jaron Reed to drop or something. Like, he can move around. So I really like watching Keyshawn Elliott. I think he was somebody that, I don't know if they're going to take a linebacker, but I really enjoyed watching him. I want to give you some more just quickly. Who else do I want to mention here? Because there's so many of these names. I really like Carver Willis, the Washington offensive lineman. I think he's somebody who, I know he ticks every box as a person. I told this story on the collective yesterday that I got some sources at the University of Washington, and they told me the story about the fire captain who sent a letter to the school when he just arrived in Seattle. And what had happened was Carver Willis only just got to Seattle from Kansas State, and he'd gone in the restaurant and for some dinner, and he'd seen 14 firefighters having a meal. And he went over, introduced himself, thanked them for his service, made his exit, having finished his meal. And when the firefighters went to pay the bill, he'd paid it. So they wrote a letter to the University of Washington to sort of highlight that he'd done this and to say thank you. And that's the kind of guy he is. So personality-wise, apparently he's a great character, great leader. And I just watched his tape and I was like, just go. I would urge everybody, go and watch the Ohio State game and tell me that this guy can't play in the NFL. Like he's dumping like guys who are going to go in the second round this year, probably first round next year potentially, on their arse. You know, his movement's good. Like, are there little refinements that need to be made? Yeah, but that's why he's not going to go in the first round. That's why you're going to get him in day 3 probably. But you know, if you want a right guard, like people going, I mean, I like Jennings Dunker a lot. We can mention him, but like he's going to go here, and Carver Willis is going to go here. You know, if you can get the player that it works, it doesn't really matter. Right? So there's him, and there are other players. Like I know I've been getting a lot of word from people I trust on Jonah Coleman, and they're saying that the Seahawks really like him. But I've got mixed views on him. But he is as a person, he's very much a Seahawk type. Like the thing that was said to me was that someone thought there was the Seahawks will kind of do what it takes to get him, but we'll see.
He's an interesting one. I'm a big, obviously, UW Husky fan, and I go to a lot of their games, Rob. And he's a running back for the last year and a half. I've been like, he would be great in the system Seattle wants to run when Kubiak was here. And now even with Brian Fleury, I'm like, I think he fits. I do have some concerns, though, on, you know, one, his health this year. He has a lot of carries on him. And two, the other thing is I think he's almost a little too big in some respects. Like he doesn't have that, you know, you've got Emmanuel Wilson, who I think is very close to a Jonah Coleman in just in some respects, the way they run, the way they're built, they're a little bit heavier, but even Wilson sometimes looks a little bit more explosive than Jonah Coleman. That's where I'm just interested. Do you really double up on two of the same running backs and then you add potentially Charbonnet back and you don't really have that explosive back?
I did a write-up on Jonah Coleman today. I wanted to put the Carver Willis story on paper, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to post my Jonah Coleman notes as well. So there are a few things that I'd noted on him. So you kind of look at him, don't you, and think yards after contact. Like the guy looks like a bowling ball. So, well, he's going to run through contact, and there are plenty of plays where he does stuff like that. I was amazed at how not bad, but how average his yards after contact was. He only had 562 yards after contact last season, which is not great. There's no real burst there. Like he often slows into contact, which is the opposite of what you want to do. And I think he's thinking a little bit too much. I mean, Ken used to do that sometimes, which is really frustrating. Like you actually want to be like, if you're going to meet somebody in the hole, like you've got to be the aggressor in that situation. You don't want to be slowing and thinking, shall I bounce at the last minute? Like you want to be getting in there and doing that. And when he does sort of get in towards tackles, I found he goes down quite easily when you get a handle on him. And here's the thing, is he's so small and big that it's actually quite, if you're like my height, I'm 6'4", like if you're like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", getting down to tackle him it's quite difficult. It's like trying to catch a dog. Like, you know, a dog's running around, like you're trying to bend down and catch him. Like it's an exaggerated example. Like my dogs are not particularly, you know, I've got whippets, so they're kind of medium sized, and if they're shooting off, like good luck bending down, that they're slippery, like they get through your grasp. And he's kind of like that, like he will slip through taller defenders' grasp, and like a lot of the players who are playing on defense are, you know, above 6'2", so it's quite hard to. But if you do get a hold of him, it kind of goes down. Like when you kind of think, I want to see him like run through that contact and like go and make a big play. And then the other thing was just that it doesn't have the burst initially, so I do think he might get caught a bit too often in the backfield. But when he gets out, like I like the fact, like I called it like forced patience, because he hasn't got that speed. When he gets to the second level, he's kind of given himself enough time to go, where do I want to go? Because he's not like getting upfield so quickly, and it helps. So he can kind of pick the way he wants to go because he's moving at a speed which allows him to be sort of reading everything. But if like, there are times also when he gets that second level, you think, just go, like, just there's the hole, go. And it's not there, like that second level. And the amazing thing was if you look at it, obviously Colorado State and UC Davis are not great opponents. And he had 7.4 yards per carry in those games. Well done. Like, you expect Washington to hammer those two teams. In 10 games, so in Colorado State, UC Davis, and Boise State, 7.3 yards per carry, those 3 games. In the other 10 games, which includes the whole Big Ten slate, he averaged 3.2 yards per carry. That's awful. It's awful. And if you combine the 3 games with the 10 games, his yards per carry was 4.8 yards last season. That was 160th in college football. Now, the Washington Huskies should not have and I know they had a split backfield last year, but they should not have a guy who we're talking up as like a potential like pick in between rounds. I mean, I think 4 or 5, but some people think 3.
Yeah.
If you're being talked about that early, Bryce, you can't be 160th for yards per carry for the Huskies. You just can't be.
Well, and I'll say this: I thought his running mate last year. Oh gosh, I can't even remember his name now. He transferred out. He's at Cal now, but I thought he was a better running back last year at points for the Huskies. Like their guy that was, I think it was Muhammad is who it was, and he was big and explosive. And like when they gave him the ball, to your point, like he hit the hole going and would just punish guys that came up to tackle him. And I was sitting there going like, that's what I expect Jonah Coleman to be if he's going to be talked the way that he's being talked about. And that's why it's not that I've soured on him, but I don't see the hype that's around him and kind of where people think he should be going. Like you said, potentially in the second or third round, where really he realistically is more of a 4 to late 5, even early 6, you might be able to kind of stretch into that area for the type of running back that he is.
And there's a whole bunch of players that are in that kind of bracket for me. Like Katron Allen is a 4th, 5th rounder. Like he's somebody that, like in that kind of range, fine. Take a flyer. Adam Randall, who's a converted receiver, like there's some decent take there. He's 6'3". Like he doesn't look like a running back. You don't have many 6'3" running backs. You definitely don't have many 6'3" running backs who played receiver up until last season. So that has to be taken into account there. Jam Miller's okay. Le'Veon Moss, there's some reasonable tape, but he's injured. People talk about Damon Claiborne because he's fast, but I thought his tape was pretty average, frankly. I just don't think this is much of a running back class, which I do think is going to influence their thinking a little bit. Part of me has wondered, there's been so many people saying the Seahawks really like Jonah Coleman. Part of me wonders a little bit whether it's all a bit of a smokescreen, whether they just want people to think that they're quite content to wait. And maybe they will be. It's just pretty hard for me. I know they wanted David Montgomery, and they didn't get him. That he went to the Texans. It's just quite hard for me to think they're going to start next season with Jonah Coleman and Emmanuel Wilson and George Alani as the running game. Like that just doesn't seem that realistic.
And that's the thing too. And there's one other guy that I think this is what also worries me, and I think he could be good, but Kenny McIntosh is coming back, and if that's who your speed guy may be, because he's a bit more of a shifty runner, we're coming off of 2 knee injuries or 2 leg injuries, I should say, in kind of back-to-back years in a way. Like, I don't like that. Like, that worries me because you've got essentially, if it's Jonah Coleman and it's, Emmanuel Wilson and Zach Charbonnet gets healthy, you have a trio of the exact same running back with a lot of the same skill sets. How are we making this running game explosive? Like, yes, we can turn out yards consistently, but every once in a while, you want that one running back that you can put in and he hits it and it goes for 40 or 50 yards. And that scares the defense. And then it also affects your screen game in a lot of ways. It's like, if you can get, when Ken Walker this year was effective in the screen game, it changed some of the Seattle games in a way when he catches a screen pass and goes for 30 or 40 yards down the sideline. And right now it's like, is George Holani the guy we're banking on? George Holani still doesn't have the same pop as a Kenny or as a Kenneth Walker did even.
I mean, I like all of the players we're talking about, George, Kenny McIntosh. Loved Kenny McIntosh at Georgia and was delighted. I mean, we were live streaming when they drafted him and I'd celebrated like, they'd won the game. Like it was a great pick. And if Kenny McIntosh had been healthy and had maybe like had a few spelled a little bit, like if he'd come on the field and shown some promise, you could think, yeah, do you know what? I can really get behind that. But when the guy's not played football for like 2 or 3 years now and has had injuries, it's quite hard to sort of then say, yeah, that's going to be the guy. Like, and you just, I don't know. I just feel as if the Seahawks rate their running game as so important that it's quite hard to imagine they're just going to sort of nickel and dime this. And you have to play the hands you dealt. Like, I don't think they should have paid Ken Walker $15 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was anybody else in free agency that should have said, we're going to lose a comp pick for Tyler Algier. I don't think that. I think they have done the right thing so far, but it might mean that you have to like say, how is your faith in Jadarian Price? How is your faith in Mike Washington Jr.? How is your faith in Emmett Johnson? Can one of these players lead your running attack? And if you think they can, you might have to make sure that you come away with one of them.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, John and Mike and this whole staff and personnel department are really going to have to look at and go over the next, couple weeks here leading up to the draft. Like, who are guys that we are going to circle and be like, hey, if they're there, we're taking them because they can effectively impact our running game. Because I don't want to see this team turn into, hey, Sam, we need you to throw the ball 40 to 35 times a game, because we saw that at points throughout this season, and it's not nearly as an effective offense as, hey, Sam, we need you to throw it 25 times and manage the game and make, 1 or 2 big throws in a game for us. Because you look at, the back end of the playoffs there, they didn't ask. They had an effective running game. Yes, Sam Darnold played an absolutely flawless game in some respects versus the Rams in the NFC Championship game. But how often can you bank on that if the run game isn't a part of that equation? And that's what kind of is for me where I get a little worried sometimes.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. Like the worst thing the Seahawks can do is apply pressure to the quarterback for next season. Like, and say, right, Sam, you now have to go and chuck it around the yard. And I just don't think that's the way they need to go. If anything, they need to double down on what was working at the end of last season, which was the running game was so strong and they could lean on that. And you can play off that a little bit. I think as they shape this thing, and they've talked so much about the run, they've got to have a running back out there who can, yes, get the sort of the hard yards, but can also score cheap points. Like it's such an important thing. Like Ken Walker breaking off that 50-yard run against the Rams was really important in week 16 after halftime, just to get you back in the game. And some of the plays that he made against the Niners, you need to finish those drives, and you're going to need a running back that can do that, who can make someone miss and then get free. And like there were frustrating things about Ken's play sometime, but you've lost him and he needs to be replaced. And that's kind of like, as you are prioritizing, like if you spoke to a lot of people who cover the Seahawks or tweet about the Seahawks or just watch football in general, who have a Seahawks allegiance of any kind, a lot of them will tell you, Bryce, well, the most important thing is to replace Reed Woolen. And it really isn't. I'm sorry. It is not. Like, they will get a cornerback, and they've got an amazing defensive back coach. And it's not to diminish when Reed Woolen played well, he played very, very well, but they couldn't trust him. And you could see that. And if you can't read the tea leaves on that, I don't know what to say for you, because it was pretty obvious that Mike McDonald was incredibly frustrated with Reed Woolen for 2 years. And there was no intention of ever bringing him back. So that tells you something. So I think they will bring somebody in who is smart, tough, reliable, who they think can execute the scheme. And this is Tyre Carter was developed. Kobe Bryant was developed with this staff. Nickerman Warrior had a good rookie season. Josh Jobe has become a player who is someone who is worth keeping around. Julian Love has continued to play very, very well. As a defensive back staff, Carl Scott and Mike McDonald and Ann Durdy and everybody else who's kind of involved in this have done a very good job. And they'll find somebody to do that. The main thing, I don't think anybody in this community, I can see the chat, I don't think anybody's kind of disagreeing with this. And
No.
But I kind of feel as if running back is the thing right now. Like, running back is the one position that is they really need to come up with a solution there. And that's why I was open to Achane. And it's why I think we have to consider that they think Jadarian Price is the 30th best player in this draft, like Lance Zierlein, or if they think he's the 40th best player in the draft, like Daniel Jeremiah seems to, and I think he's in that kind of ballpark, that 30 range, you have to consider taking him at 32.
I totally agree with you. And when I look at, say, in my opinion, the 3 areas of quote unquote concern for the Hawks or areas they need to fill, corner is like 3rd on that list. I would even put edge ahead of that because you potentially got Tank Lawrence for this next season. Derek Hall is in need of a contract extension at the end of this season. You're going to have to find ways to replenish that group because it's going to get depleted very quickly. And I don't think Connor O'Toole or Jared Ivey are exactly guys you want to hitch your wagon to necessarily and be like, yeah, that's the next group that's coming in. You need to replenish that. But I agree with you. That may be hey, we're going to use Von Miller this year after the draft because there's nobody really like, but running back is such a key part of this team's identity. And this is something I always, go back to, Rob, when the Seahawks have been a successful franchise, you look back to the 2013, it was defense and Marshawn Lynch running the football. They won a Super Bowl. They went back to another one and they had a very successful run. When they lost their running game and they lost their defense, they were a purgatory-based football team. Even it was the let Russ cook era. It never felt functional. Now you've come full circle again. You've got a running game. You've got a defense. Don't lose that identity because that is what makes you a winning franchise and a franchise that can compete for Super Bowls, not, hey, shucks, let's get into the wild card round and see what happens.
Yep. I completely agree with all of that. And it just... if you were going to because you can run through sort of the names and people are suggesting names for day 3 and we've talked a bit about some of them. But I think you can do that when you've got a bit of flexibility to play with. Like if you have, let's say you had Ken Walker and you had Zach Charbonnet this year and you thought, I want to take one of these running backs in round 4 or round 5 and plan ahead because we know that maybe Ken Walker's going to leave. That'd be understandable. Or if Zach Charbonnet was fully healthy, like no knee injury, just going to come back next year, let's go and draft someone on day round 4 or something like that. If you can get back into that kind of area, and we'll pair them with Zach Charbonnet, and we feel pretty good about it. But because Charbonnet's got the knee injury, and because he's in a contract year, and you've not gone out and signed anybody in free agency, except for a player who, if we're being really fair here, was not kept around by Green Bay. Like they could have kept him as a restricted free agent, and they didn't. So you've not really done anything there. And now you're kind of looking at it, you're thinking, you don't want to get 3 weeks into the season and think, how the heck did we end up with just Emmanuel Wilson and George Alani here? Like with Zach Charbonnet hopefully coming back soon, or back but not 100% and maybe needing a bit of time here and needs to be managing his reps. You don't want to be in that position. So they've got to come up with something. And that's why I think because of the shelves, you can get a corner later on. Like Ezekiel Masses is just such a quality, I think, prospect. Somebody like that on day 2 with Jadarian Price, to me, makes a bit more sense than Chris Johnson and Jonah Coleman forced at 96. I just think that's the better way of doing it.
So with that all being said, Robin, what we've just went on this lengthy discussion about, let's actually do a mock draft and see how it could potentially fall for us here. So I will bring up the Pro Football Network mock draft simulator here. And everyone in the chat, feel free to follow along. And if you get your super chats in there, those will get answered here shortly. So I'll just share my screen here, Rob, and we'll get this underway. So
and this
there
is the
we go.
Best. I just want to say that I think this is the best.
Yeah.
Mock draft. You might want to put it on fast rather than normal, just because otherwise we'll be.
I know it slowly pulls itself along. And I made the mistake one time, Rob, of going on slow, and I literally went back and restarted the draft because I was like, I'll be here all night.
I'd love to know if someone's actually done a mock draft with it on slow or normal. Like this idea that you would sit there like it's real life as the machine picks like the 3rd pick for Arizona, and you're kind of stewing there like in a pretend like draft room. But yeah, I think this is the best mock draft simulator. I've tried all of them, and this one's the cleanest. And I think it has the best big board. So if anyone wants to try the mock draft simulators, I think the Pro Football Network, PFSN, it's called these days. But if you want to go on that, that's the best one. And it's free.
Yeah, it is free. And the thing you can do too is it allows you to select the player list. You can go in here, go consensus, ESPN, PFF, the Athletic, or use your own one. We're going to use the PFSN one, which I think is the best one. So we'll enter this and we'll see how this kind of shapes up here. Well, look, Rob, the simulator thought the same thing everyone else does. Mendoza's just a guarantee pick number 1.
I love the fact that he's now made his way to number 1 on their rankings as well, because I think they just want to make sure he goes at number 1, and that's the best way to do it. But he's not the best player in the draft.
No. And so we've got a couple trade options, obviously, here right off the bat. So we've got Buffalo trading us pick 47 and 78 for pick 32. Yeah. We've also got Carolina coming in with pick 51, pick 92, and the next year's second, and taking our 188 along with the 32nd. And then the last one is Jacksonville at 56 and 81 for pick 32. Any of those appeal to you?
No, I'm going to turn all of those down because I can see in the list there is a player that we spoke about him earlier, that I don't think he's going to last. So, let's just take this on face value. If he's there, I'm going to take Adrian Terrell. I think he is very similar to his brother. I think he's very much a fit. I thought he had a great combined field workout. I think he's somebody who can, if we're talking about players who could potentially sign second contracts in this draft class, I think he's one of the few that could. And I think it is a draft full of one contract players, but I think Terrell is one that could theoretically sign a second contract. So I'm taking him here and just saying, what the F, I'm taking him. It's fine.
All right. Well, we'll take Terrell. Maybe we'll do another one where we actually don't have him there, considering how random that was. But all right. So Carolina's come back, pick 83 and 92 for 64 and 188. And that's the only trade offer we do have on the board. Do you want to just take a look first here, Rob?
Yeah. I think it's an appealing trade, but I don't want to miss. Yeah, I don't want to miss out on this position. And look, Mike Washington is not a perfect player by any stretch of the imagination. Janarian Price still there. So I can't take Janarian. But if
Terrell's there, we can't take Price. There's no way that board's falling that way.
This is the flaw. I've just praised the Pro Football Network, but they've got Janarian Price rated far too low on this thing. But he would not be there. I'm not going to take it. He won't be there at 64. If he was, and you could get Terrell and Janarian Price, you might as well just give John Schneider his Executive of the Year award again.
Yeah,
for next year. And we can just see you in LA for the Super Bowl. But I'll take Mike Washington and assume that Price is not there, just because I think you need to come away with a good runner for me.
Do you want to look at the edge group before we click that, or are you confident in that?
No, I'm confident in that. I think you have to. I think there'll be something at edge later on, maybe.
Okay. All right. Here we go. All right, so Chicago's come at us with the trade, pick 129 for those two. I don't think we're going to do that one. No. Cincinnati's come back with pick 110.
Yeah, that well-known trading team, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. That also give edge players massive contracts as well, apparently, in the offseason. Somehow Price is still sitting there.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. That's not going to happen. So let's have a look who is there, who would be there.
I do like Dennis Sutton from what I saw again of him at the Mobile. He was one of the edges that really did stand out to me because I think he's a bigger edge that does have some athletic traits. I don't know what your thoughts on Dennis Sutton are.
So I've got my notes here. I put good listed size, can uncoil from a leverage position to attack tackles, get pad level and burst around the edge. Shown he can use a swim move to get off blocks and slip into the backfield. Had reps on tape where he gets to the edge quickly, turns the corner and explodes to the QB. Shocked average tackles with his quickness, either by attacking the edge or cutting inside. Even so, you do see tightness in his movements. Does not possess devastating speed off the edge. Get off question marks are legitimate. Too often he's late off the ball and he doesn't have much of a counter plan. So I think there's something there. He only had a pass rush win percentage of 15.8%, so it's not great. I tell you who I'm going to go for. I can see on the list that he's still there, and this is another flaw with the system, but I'm going to... We've gone corner, we've gone running back, and I'm going to take a pass rusher. And I'm not... It's not someone I'm banging the table for or anything. But Romello Height's pass rush win percentage is insanely good. Like it's right up there with like the best in class who are going to go in the first round. And with a 96th pick in the draft. And I don't know if you saw this at the Combine. They did an interview with Romello Height and David Bailey, and they stood next to each other. And David Bailey looked like he was there to carry Romello Height's bags. Like, Romello Height just looked absolutely fantastic. And Bailey did not. So I don't know if Height is probably a one contract player. He's 25 years old, but it's the 96th pick in a bad draft. So I'm going to take Romello Height here and just say get him in as a situational rusher.
So it's interesting because he was the one edge at Mobile that like his speed was second to none there. Nobody was even close to how twitchy he was. He was in the backfield sometimes before the tackles even got out of their stance and were able to actually even slide to get a hand on him.
So there was only two players who had a better in this class who had a better pass rush win percentage. Nadeem Tucker, who played for Western Michigan, so the competition level was not great.
Yeah.
And Ruben Bain. So he was ahead of David Bailey, Akeem Messidor, Cassius Howell, Malachi Lawrence, Zion Young. All of these guys were some of them considerably lower in the pass rush win percentage than Romello Height. So he produced. And if you only need him to rush on sort of some second downs and mostly third downs, I think he's worth a try.
All right, so we'll take him here at pick 96. Next pick is 188. So we got a little bit of a wait here.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be the frustrating. If they don't trade down, this will be the frustrating part for those like the draft is that you just sat there and you're seeing players that you do like, even in this bad draft, coming off the board.
All right, so let's go to the big board here. So this is what's kind of left out here. Cyrus Allen is a receiver with someone that I did like at Mobile. I thought he's got a cool skill set in a way. He can play in the slot. He can play outside and get off press and stuff. And he might give you a little bit of something in the return game, but I don't think receiver is necessarily a need at all now with the Rashid Shaheed signing.
No, I'd agree with that. I know who I'm going to take. What we should do is we'll do if we've got time, let's do another one and let's mix it up a little bit. But I seen as I'm on a roll here with the guys that I like, I'm going to take Carver Willis, the Washington offensive lineman, and say that's my kind of. I'm guessing he's going to be available. I'm going to get him in.
Is he listed as a no tackle? Yep, there he is.
Yeah, I'm going to take him because I just think he's somebody that you plug into the depth and you say, look, go on and see if you can win this job. Win a job somewhere. So. I think you bring him in and he's got a good chance of being a really good zone blocking guard.
All right, so we'll take Carver Willis here. And that's it for our draft. Well, the Raiders took two quarterbacks that I just saw. They took Drew Allar here at the start of the 7th round.
Wowza.
So there's our draft. What a great class that is. You got, we addressed some needs, and I think you added competition to the right guard. You added an edge. I don't ever see the board necessarily falling to the point where we're saying no to Price in round 3, but I do agree with you. If Avion Terrell is there, he's a no-brainer at pick 32.
Yeah, it's just such a quality player. Like you watch him and you think, this guy's he's destined to play in the NFL, and like it helps when the brothers had such a good, strong career so far. Like the brother's not become Darrell Revis or anything, but he's become like what you want, like someone who's a very steady, surefire re-sign at the end of his rookie contract, and he's played at a high level. And you just think, if you can get his brother in here who plays, it does everything very well. Like if he plays bigger than he is, like his size is small, but he plays big. There were numerous examples where he was kind of just left to cover one half of the field almost on his own. Like split everybody over to the one side, and then they have one receiver on the other side of the opponent, and Avion Terrell would be like, right, you're covering that side of the field, everybody else is on this side. And then just left him to it. And little things like that matter to me. Like that's trust. That's our best guy that we're going to trust to look after all of that space, especially in college football where it's all about finding the space. He did a great job there. He run defense is good. He'll come up and hit you. You can line him up in all sorts of different positions. He can blitz well. Like for me, Avion Terrell's, if he gets past Dallas and Pittsburgh at 21, that'd be I think that'd be a surprise personally.
So do you want to use PFN SN again, or do you want to use consensus?
Yeah, no, let's go for that. Well, I don't know. I think the consensus one's a bit all over the place, but give it a bash. Let's be different.
All right, we'll be different on this one. So we'll try this and we'll We'll see how it goes. Well, it says that, at least Fernando Mendoza wasn't ranked the number 1 player on that. That when he was number 2, Rob. So
it's
all right.
Terrell there again, hasn't it? Like, that's the problem. Do you know?
Yeah.
I'd go back. Let's restart it and let's do the PFM one. But let's just restart it because we're just Terrell's there and we've already said like he's not good.
Yeah, there's no way he's going to probably be there, most likely. Okay, so restart it with this one again.
Yeah, I just do it with that one, and let's just see how it goes. Because I'm worried the consensus one will just chuck Terrell our way every time. Like, he's not there this time.
No, he's not there this time. Okay, Colton Hood is again. So the only trade that we're offered is Cleveland giving us pick 39 and 107 for pick 32.
Well, let's do it. Let's move down. That's 7 spots. So you might think, do you know what? There's a few options here. Are they trading up for a player that we're not gonna want? Potentially so, like Ty Simpson. Are they going up for him? So let's do it. Let's move down 7 spots and get pick 107.
Okay, so let's have a look. So the Falcons have offered us 48 for 39 and so on. Green Bay 52. Neither one of those, but who? Oh, CJ Allen. That's who they decided. They moved up for a linebacker.
Because that's definitely what Cleveland needs after Carson Schwarzenegger gets picked. No one's going to be offering us second round, third round picks for next year. Like, they're not going to be doing that. So let's just ignore those trades. So with this pick, I'm taking Ty Simpson. No, I'm joking.
Well, with the hat on your head, I wouldn't doubt it there, Rob.
I think with this, like, you're looking at it, I'm not a big Emmanuel McNeil-Warren fan. I think Chris Bell's an interesting player, but I don't want to take a receiver here.
Do you want to look at running back?
Yeah, I mean, look, we know the Jaron Price is going to be there, don't we? So let's have a look at the corner. There. Let's have a look at the cornerbacks and see who's left.
So you have Stukes.
So Chris Johnson's gone.
Yeah, Pons, Julian Neal. Again, Chandler Rivers is down there that we could get later on that I think is an interesting. Who does Rivers remind you of? If you had to give a player comp for him, who does he kind of remind you in the way he plays?
That's a good question. I mean, think of any sort of 5'10". Let me just check. How tall is this player? And I'll tell you whether I think there's something there. Yeah, I kind of had a bit of a D. Alford kind of feel.
Yeah, that's who kind of popped into my brain with them too as well.
So that was, and D. Alford's, I just checked, he's 5'11", and Rivers is more like 5'9" and 7/8, so something like that. It's like 5'10". But I did, that's kind of the player I was thinking of, and I think if you can get that on day 2, it's pretty good. With the edge, I'm not a Zion Young man, as we talked about earlier. He's slower. Like, they did the zebra technology thing at the Senior Bowl, and he was slower than LJ Collier. So I think we've kind of been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. And the other thing is LJ Collier was actually a better edge rusher, so like he could actually win off the edge.
Yeah.
Zion Young wins with power, and like there was Missouri who was the guy that Arizona took in the first round a couple of years ago, who won consistent with power. He was bigger, longer, better than Zion Young, and he's not done a thing in the NFL.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember now.
Arizona Cardinals draft history. Here we go.
Shows you how important he was. One, it's the Cardinals, and they didn't draft anyone memorable.
So it was Darius Robinson, and
that's who it was. Yes,
yeah, and like Missouri chucks these players into the league. These very physical, like, linemen, both sides of the ball, and a lot of them don't tend to sort of do much of anything. So I'm not a Zion Young guy. I think I'm going to take Jadarian Price here.
Okay.
And go for it.
Okay. All right.
Running game sorted.
Okay, so this is Buffalo's basically moved 1 pick.
Oh, well, why not?
Yeah, I was going to say this isn't a bad suggestion from Buffalo. We'll drop 1 spot and pick up an earlier pick later on. So here we go.
They must be fearful of who we're going to take.
Yeah, no kidding. And so we won't look at that one because it's got picks for next year. They took Skylar Bell, receiver out of UConn.
Cracking player, but he drops too many passes. Too many drops.
So here we are. We've taken our running back. Now, do we want to look at the corner group here and see, or do we look at the edge group?
I think let's look at edge. This might be a best player available situation here, because the cornerbacks, I think I'm prepared to wait to 96 for, and the edge rush group, I'm not seeing anybody who jumps out to me at 65 compared to if you go back to the all.
Yeah,
I think there was some. So you still got Denzel Boston. I don't think he's going to be there. I'm not a big Jeremy Bernard fan. I love Caleb Banks. The broken foot bothers me, but he is a very good player. Grayson Holton is quite fun. Keelan Rutledge is nasty.
I like Keelan Rutledge as a guard potentially. Yeah.
I mean, he's very physical, isn't he? He's extremely physical. To the point of, I think, annoying people at times. Teammates. Like, he's just too much sometimes. But like Keontae Scott's a great player. But if you don't need a nickel, he'll hit you in the face. Like, that's Cam Chancellor.
Oh yeah,
cornerback. Demetrius Crownover is pretty cool as a player. Like, he's big and athletic, but they don't need a right tackle.
Linebackers
Carl Lewis is freaking awesome. Do you know what? I'm going to take Carl Lewis. I just love Carl Lewis, and I think you can play him as a little bit of safety there as well as linebacker. So
yep.
Kind of is Jalen Kilgore still there? Check the safety.
He is 98.
Take him.
Kilgore.
I think he can play a bit of corner for you as well.
Yeah.
We'll take Kilgore.
Okay, we'll take Kilgore, and we'll see how the rest of this board falls. All right. No, we will not look at that trade. We're not going to bother. Okay, so back to the big board. I like Jacoby Lane as a receiver out of USC. When I watched him at Senior Bowl, like, he's a bigger receiver, obviously, but he moves so well, and he gets in and out of his breaks well for a bigger receiver. Like, there's a lot of his, and he blocks well. That was one thing that stood out to me when I look at receivers now for the Seahawks and what they want to do. Like, you got to be able to block, and Jacoby Lane can block, and he blocks well. He's definitely someone that I'm interested in. Where do you want to go here?
Corner.
Okay. So we've got Davis, Masses, Rivers, Devin Moore out of Florida is another interesting. Prysock, again, another Husky. So between the two Husky corners, Rob, who do you think's a better potential fit in the NFL?
I've not completed my rides upon Prysock yet. I need to finish him off, but I quite like him. Davis less so, but again, I've not finished the write up on him. Davis is not on the horizontal board yet, so I need to finish that one off. But I know I'm going to take here. Look, I really like Chandler Rivers, but I'm going to take Ezekiel Masses. I just think they're very similar in terms of grading for me. But I love Masses. I think he's got huge potential, so I'm going to take him here.
Okay. All right. Bud Clark went right. Oh, Kalen Black's another interesting running back prospect as a guy you could get later on potentially.
I'd take Chandler Rivers right here now and not even
double up.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Let's take Chandler Rivers. We'll double up there at corner. All right. So 126 for pick 140 and 179.
No, I don't want to give away picks next year. So
okay. All right. So far, just to go over, we've got Jaden Price, Kilgore, Masses, and Rivers. Well, we've restocked that secondary.
Oh yeah, really have. I think edge.
What do you think of Barham, the other Michigan edge?
Yeah, I like him. I think he's got some potential there. Like, he really attacks the edge in the run game. Like, you don't. What you want him doing is you want him in attack mode. Like, he's not somebody who's going to sort of seal the edge, so to speak. You play him outside linebacker in a 3-man front with, two outside linebackers there, and you get him sort of attacking downfield. And when he does that, I mean, he comes after it, so he can play the run very well in that situation. And there was a little bit of untapped pass rush potential that you sort of see. Like, he only just switched to that sort of edge type role last year, and you do sort of see flashes of that. he was somebody early in the season I really rated high. I had him in the second round early on, and then his play just faded so much as the season went on that you just kind of thought, I'm going to have to knock him a little bit back here just because the consistency wasn't there.
Yeah.
But a heck of a player. And so I like him, and I'd happily take a chance on him here in round 4. Yeah, definitely.
And I look at you, you're asking to be rotational at this point, right? Fill kind of what the Boy and Mafe snaps were a little bit. And I think he's potentially a better player than Connor O'Toole for you and gives you a little bit more upside, who's currently sitting in that role. So I'm in agreement there. So we'll take Barham here.
The only thing is with him is people say he's quite quiet, Barham. He's quite a quiet person. And you just wonder whether the Seahawks want a shrinking violet, maybe. Or maybe he's just kind of not loud, not a big talker, which is perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. But it is a team full of alphas, isn't it? And you kind of think they might want a bit of that. And that's kind of what I've gone for with this. Like, Kill got big sort of alpha energy there. Same with Rivers, even though he plays cornerback. Is that kind of, is that what Barham's going to bring? I mean, he's very physical on the field, but maybe not the same character that they're sort of crazy about. We'll see.
So there's our second draft with a couple trades. We end up with Price, Kilgore, Masses, Rivers, and Barham, which if they walked out of the draft with this, I'd feel okay.
Yeah, and look, and people will go, oh, look at that. There's 3 defensive backs there. But that's, there's a strength of the draft is defensive back. So, it's not a huge surprise if you tap into that and you've replenished the stocks. I always think it's good to have cornerbacks that you can develop in your team. So you've got a couple of cornerbacks there. You need to replace one first and foremost, which is Tariq Woolen. And then you've got to have, a bit of extra depth. So you've got that now. And then Kilgore, I think you say compete with Ty Carter, like go in there and he can move around. He can play. He's probably not going to play single high anytime soon, but he can move around to that second level, that intermediate. You can interchange with Julian Love. If you wanted to put, Nickham and Warrior on a certain sort of in a position and have him do a certain role, you could then have Kilgore sort of make, fill in his position there. And the other thing is that we're seeing the sort of the use of the tight ends a lot with the Rams, and the Rams have had Seattle's lunch money in the last couple of games in terms of offense. Well, if you're going to have that, and you've got 2 guys who are ideally suited now, Nickham and Warrior and Jalen Kilgore used to play together to handle specifically that sort of combat, with the tight ends. And look, if the Rams draft Sadiq and they sort of double down on the tight ends, you're going to need a counterpunch to that. So maybe it's not the worst thing in the world to have multiple big, fast, physical safety hybrids on your team.
Yeah, and that's the way I look at it is, Rivers, I think, could play outside if, Job gets nicked up. And really, Nehemiah Pritchett right now is kind of the only other corner that's got some game experience on your current, yes, you brought in some guys, from free agency, but there's no guarantee that any of those guys are going to stick, even at the safety position. Like you said, Kilgore could go in there and compete with Ty Okada and Rodney Thomas as well to see if Thomas is worth the contract. Basically, none of these guys that I think they signed in free agency are locks on this roster.
Yeah, I agree. And they're draft hedges. That's all they are.
Yeah.
Like they're signing a bunch of players and there's no tie. Like just because they sign a few players now, it's just to cover themselves and have competition for camp in case the draft goes a certain way. Like they've lost a safety, they've lost a cornerback, they've lost a running back. They're gonna bring some guys in at those positions so that if the draft goes a certain way, they're not thinking, what are we going to do now? Like you just have to have those players, but they're also players that once you get into camp, if they're just not that good and they're not good enough, they're going to move on, and you've got draft picks there to replace them.
Yeah, and so let's take a look here. We'll go through the 12s Q&A here, Rob. We got a few good questions in here and a couple super chats. So we'll start off with this one here from All goes, hey, Rob, what do you think about Noah Whittingham or Bryce
Betcher? Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Bryce Betcher. I'm going to get my notes on him now from the database. There are 2 Bryces in the draft. That's the second one. Bryce Betcher. So I've put, gives absolutely everything on the field, considered the heart and soul of Oregon's defense, good feel for the game, flows to the ball, clearly does his homework. When a player is consistently in the right place at the right time, that isn't a coincidence. Shown he can avoid second-level blocking to play the ball. Decisive when blitzing, does a good job breaking the line of scrimmage. 12 pressures in 2025, a big increase on what he did the year before. And had this one pressure in game 2 versus Indiana, which stood out, attacked the B gap, got there before the tackle, leveled the running back for a loss. Excellent feeling awareness, quickness to shoot the gap, and a crunching tackle at the end of it. Took 2 snaps in the red zone as a running back, scoring once versus USC. Take on ability is impressive. Forceful versus tight ends and packs a punch. Coverage won't be his calling card. Give up 34 receptions on 45 targets. If you want an attacking downhill linebacker, that is Bryce Betcher. I would not underestimate him. He is a good football player, is what I put. So I like him. He's not someone who's going to go early. The testing numbers are not going to be there for him to go super early in the draft. And then for Noah Whitting, I noted... he didn't fumble in 2025. He's smaller, 5'8", 205. Didn't test at the combine, though. Downhill running style. Does not have an explosive-looking lower body. When running through contact, a wide gait enables contact balance. A little slow to accelerate. Might get caught in the backfield at the next level. Oregon blocking did a great job creating a lot of kick return style runs for him. Doesn't show much in the passing game or as a blocker. If he's not a third down back, hard to imagine him leading a rushing attack on early downs. System definitely benefited him. Decisive and doesn't dance. Does play with a physical style to his credit, has some return experience. I thought he was quite a limited player personally.
All right. Well, there's your breakdown there for you, all right there from Rob. All right. We got Sonny in here. Hey, Rob, do you think the rumors of Achane are heating up, or is it all just talking? I think this is something we went over earlier, Rob, but kind of seems damper now with the way they've come out and said, hey, we're not trading him.
Well, it's hard to parse it because the Dolphins said at the combine they weren't trading Jalen Waddle or Devin Achane, and then they traded Waddle. And now you kind of wonder a little bit whether people are picking up the phone yesterday and going, look, what's it going to take to get Achane? And the Dolphins are going, well, make us an offer. And they're going, we'll give you a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round pick. And the Dolphins are going, no, we're not trading him. And if then Schefter has either spoken to the Dolphins and put that message out there or spoken to teams who are trying to trade for him and they're saying no dice, it might just be that no one's actually made an offer to tempt the Miami Dolphins. And maybe that article was designed to maybe try and get the offers to move up a little bit. I don't know. I just kind of think I was surprised that Waddle got traded now. Like, it's unusual to see trades after free agency at this stage like that, like blockbuster trades. Could things still happen before the draft? I guess so. I suspect my hunch is that maybe we've seen with the Waddle trade most of the hot action that's going to happen before the draft now. So
you can't say that, Rob. Andy Dalton got traded today. That's the big news right now.
Apologies to the Red Rifle. Yeah.
All right, we got one here from Catalyst. Goes, how do you feel about a Wednesday opener just to have the Australia game on a Thursday? Because it sounds like Seattle's playing on Wednesday. I have a problem with it. I think the NFL is going to eat itself soon. I think we've seen too much. They're getting too greedy. Like this, the fact there's even a game in Australia to me is preposterous. And no offense to any Australian who's maybe listening to this, Australia is not just. It's not like playing in Mexico, is it? Like you're playing on the other end of the world here. I'm glad the Seahawks are not playing in that game. I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like to fly to Australia, play a game of football, and then recover, come back and readjust and recover. Like that to me just feels like a ridiculous thing to try and do. So I don't think there should be a game in Australia. I think there's too many international games. I think there are just far too many of them. I love American football because it's very American. I don't need it to become a global sport. Like, you're making a lot of money, and now you're trying to shoehorn games into the night before Thanksgiving. You're trying to ruin Christmas for everybody by putting crappy games on that you feel obliged to watch if your team is playing in them. You've got this now where you've got the Australia game on the Thursday, so the Seahawks have to play on the Wednesday. I think, there's all the talk of like an 18th game. They've already ruined things by going to a 17th game and then extending the playoffs out. Today, they're talking about extending trades to 5 years. The Cleveland Browns have proposed that. What? So it's just ridiculous. Like, the league's fine. Like, when you've got a good thing, protect it. You just it's too much greed, too much like desperation to how can we further dominate the sporting sphere? I'm starting to get a bit fed up with all this stuff. I just want my NFL back. Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm annoyed about it too, because the one thing I always looked forward to was the first game of the season was Thursday night, and it was the team that won the Super Bowl gets to drop their banner and all that. And now you're moving it to a Wednesday, which throws off the preparation for the following week and so on and so forth, just to have a game in a market where, like, again, I'm not trying to say that Australia doesn't matter or anything like that, but I agree with you, Rob. It's not known for American football there. Like, that's not something you think about when you think of Australia. And now we're going and putting, the 49ers, I think the Rams are the teams that are playing there on that Thursday. And it's like, okay, like, you're getting too big and eventually it's going to pop and you're going to have something that's just not going to go right. And it's going to be a massive dud.
And Australia's it's very distinct with what it likes. So, for example, rugby league's like their main sport. That's quite a niche sport, by the way. And then you've got Aussie rules football, which is extremely, they only play it in Australia. And they're like the main sports. But then you've got like rugby union, which is massive, like in England, for example. It's not that well supported in the stands and like in the terms of attendance. Soccer's not that big over there. For our football, like it's not that big in Australia. Cricket is, it's got a following, but it doesn't feel quite as big as it is perhaps over here. And you think, well, you're going to chuck the NFL into the mix. Like in England, we'll watch anything. Like we have really sort of bought into the NFL. If you go to Germany, they're crazy about the NFL in Germany as well. Some of these countries that they go into, I kind of feel a little bit as if they're trying to dip the toe in and see if they can launch something here. Because you don't get the sense that the French are gasping for an NFL game, yet they're getting one, or the Spanish. And the Australians, I think, the same way. Like, there definitely will be some hardcore fans in all of those countries, but maybe not enough to warrant flying 24 hours or whatever it's going to take to get to Australia for a game.
Agreed. We got one from Sonny here. Goes, how likely is it the Seahawks pay Charbonnet if he comes back near the mid or end of the season? I think they gave him maybe a 1-year extension because, again, you don't know what version of Charbonnet you're going to get back off this knee injury, and he's only probably going to have maybe half a season to prove his worth. I think it's more than likely he gets a 1-year extension. What about you, Rob?
I think he'll get extended like Abe Lucas. I think they will see an opportunity here to get a value contract. I mean, that Abe Lucas contract looks like an absolute bargain right now. Like if he was hitting free agency, he'd be getting a fortune. So I think they'll try and do that. I think they'll get ahead of the curve with this and go, look, you've got an injury. We want to look after you. We want to give you a chance to get back into free agency, make some money down the line. We want to protect you here with a contract. Maybe it's a 2-year extension, something like that. Maybe it is a 1-year extension, but they want to give him some money and support him in that way. I think that's what they will do. I am quite bullish on his ability to return. I've been saying this to a lot of different shows and my own show, is that when I speak to people in English soccer, in football, they'll say that the ACL technology is so strong these days that it's a lot quicker recovery time than it used to be. And you can recover, pretty much make a full recovery now. And that things like Achilles are a lot worse. I don't think he's going to be out for 9 months. Like Jordan Brooks had the same injury towards the end of the season and came back and played week 1. I think there's a chance that Zach Charbonnet will be back week 1.
All right. We got a donation here from Shane for $2. Goes, Mike Washington's ceiling, hearing mixed reviews.
Ceiling's he's got a limitless ceiling. Like the guy's 225 pounds, about thereabouts, and he runs as fast as Devin Achane. He's much more explosive.
He to me reminds me of a more athletic version of Chris Carson in some respects.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some the kind of like the plowing through people side of Chris Carson. You definitely see some of that. Carson's build was. I stood next to Chris Carson once, and he was shorter than I expected, but he was just like thick, like muscular. And Mike Washington's more of he's kind of got that Darren McFadden style.
Yes,
I'm not saying that because
that's a really good comp, actually, in some respects. There, Rob.
Do you know what I mean with the legs?
Yes,
and the frame are more like a McFadden frame, and he's 6'1", so he's a little bit taller. Like Carson was a little bit squattier. So and obviously McFadden didn't have a great NFL career despite the speed and everything like that. But he is physical. He is an incredible acceleration. He finishes his runs. There's a lot of good things there. The fumbling stuff is when you hear mixed reviews, people like to get to the fumbling. I think if you don't go Jadarian Price with your first pick, I think you have to consider taking a chance on Mike Washington. But he's somebody I've liked for a while. Like when I was watching Arkansas in the season, he stood out to me.
So, all right, Sean, thank you for that donation. We've got one here from Brian. He's got a couple in here. He goes, Rob, Will John Schneider move around and add more picks?
I mean, maybe, but as we talked about earlier, I don't think there's going to be teams rushing to trade up. I don't think their offers are going to be particularly strong because they're going to be offering day 3 picks, and you might be talking about priority free agents for the Seahawks in that kind of range, so they might not be interested. Like if it's about getting a free agent who's not even going to make your roster because you think we're loaded roster right now, is it really worth missing out on or risking missing out on somebody to drop down 5 spots? They might think no. So I think there's always a chance that John Schneider will trade down, but he hasn't been doing that recently. He's been sticking and picking in the early rounds. So I think if he really wants somebody or feels like he has to address something, he might just say, I'm just going to take the pick here.
Agreed. And Brian's got one more here. He goes, deep dive sleeper running back, Curtis Allen, Virginia Union. Your thoughts?
Not someone I've studied yet, but I should do because Curtis has raised the fact that he has his namesake in the draft. So I really should study him. Like Curtis, I think is probably petitioning for Curtis Allen to be drafted by the Seahawks. So we can get.
That's fair. Can't argue that.
Get an Allen shirt, jersey. So I should watch him for that reason. Yeah, I've not seen him yet.
All right, and we've got another donation here from Hulk Smash for $5. I asked this on Seahawks Forever show, but I'd like to hear your guys' take on it too. Is there anyone you guys would trade up for in this class? I think Terrell maybe is one of them. What about any names otherwise than that, Rob?
I mean, look, if Spencer Fano was there in the 20s, I'd be trading up. But I don't think Spencer Fano was going to be there in the 20s. So I think the mock drafts have got a bit silly. Like suddenly, like I see him like in like last into 20th or something like that, and I'm thinking like, have you seen this guy play and how he tested? Like, if he was there, then I'd seriously consider it. But it's kind of him, Mawanoa. That might be it.
Yeah, for me, like I would say Terrell's probably. Yeah, Jeremiah Love's the other name that came to my head. If he's somehow sitting there in the 20s and has fallen all the way down, then I may be considering running back such need. Yeah, I trade up for a Jeremiah Love. But thank you for the donation there, Hulk Smash. And we've got one here from Sam for $5. Goes, thoughts on Chris Sims sharing his top running backs today, and Mike Washington was not mentioned. Insider knowledge. Great show as always, gents.
No insider knowledge. I mean, Chris Sims, he just does his own thing, doesn't he? Like every year, there's the rankings. It's almost like I think the problem with Chris Sims' rankings, and I do watch them. I find them entertaining to watch, but the problem is that he had a bit of success early on with his quarterback rankings, and they were a bit out there. Like I think he had like Lamar Jackson as number 1, and like you think, oh well, that's quite, no one else was saying that. Like, so he's got some great insight here. And then it happened like 2 or 3 times, didn't it? Where like the quarterback rankings really worked for him, but they were a bit out there. So now I kind of feel like he thinks like, I want to be out there all the time. And then what I need is to be out there and right on one of these like positional players or the quarterbacks, whatever. And that's how I get the praise. So like his quarterback rankings, like he had the Texas Tech quarterback as like the QB3, Baron Morton. I'm thinking like, look, come on, man. Like, I like Baron Morton, and there's definitely like he played through injuries and stuff like that. He's not a totally bad player or anything. Like it's not preposterous, but you're kind of forcing it a little bit to put him ahead of some of the other quarterbacks at number 3 here. And with the running backs, I read them and I kind of felt like, come on, like. And also, here's the other thing, Bryce. I might not do this full time, but I spend a lot of time in my free time on this. I know how long it takes to watch these players. And Chris Sims seems to watch a whole position group in a week and then come out with a ranking. Like, I'm not being funny. Like, the man is on air. He is doing other things in his life. He isn't just sat for 20 hours a day watching the tape. And no one can physically do that either, by the way. To properly study tape, this has to be a process that lasts over months. You can't just go, I'm going to watch them all the running backs, all of them in a week, and then produce a ranking that means anything. Like that's BS, man. That's not.
And I agree with you. Like even for me as a coach, there's not even enough time in a week really to study another team's defense that I'm about to prepare for with everything else I've got going on, trying to even get all that knowledge in of what I'm doing. Like, a week it's like, oh, I need at least 2 if I was going to dedicate almost, every single day to it. So again, with what you do, Rob, it's absolutely amazing work because again, you have other things going off. You are a full-fledged reporter that covers an entire different sport, and you give some of the best draft insight out there. And so again, thank you for that.
It's nice of you to say, but the thing is, when people ask about players, and I can just sort of flick up the notes and have a look and see what I put about them. I can't do that if I'm doing everything in a week. Like
Yeah,
you have
no,
to be able to,
exactly.
you have to be able like that. Some of these notes will be made in November. Like you've got to be able to spread it out. Otherwise, like if you just said, I've sat down last night and watched 3-4 games of Fernando Mendoza. Here's my breakdown. That's absolutely fine. You can't say, right, for the last week, I've watched every tight end and here's my 5 best. That's just very hard to do and take seriously, I'm afraid.
Agreed. And we've got a $10 donation here from Idleman goes, from Florida now, a Washington resident Dolphin fan. Sorry, no HN. Sleeper running back is Adam Randall from Clemson. 6'3", 235 pounds, 4'5", punishing rusher. And he comes back in with another one here, Dan, Rob, that follows it up from Idleman. He goes, basically saying the same thing about Adam Randall. Yeah, for $5. You basically $15, same donation.
He really likes Adam Randall.
He really does.
Look,
what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on him earlier. He's a good player. Like he surprised me. Like when I actually sat down to watch the tape, I was pleasantly surprised by how effective and naturally looked as a running back. I'll quickly sort of bring up the what I had about him since there was 2 super chats. I put big dude, nearly 6'3", 233 pounds, 33-inch arms, big hands, converted wide receiver, but you couldn't tell. He does look like a running back, shows ability to cut through traffic with decisiveness, no messing about. He's a downhill runner who takes what's there. Give him a crease and he can accelerate and make big gains. Has a receiver-like ability to run away from defenders in the open field. Wheel routes are run brilliantly. Could be an X factor in the passing game. Only 526 yards after contact, which was 72nd in college. But he plays like it should be more. Gets low to absorb contact and keeps his legs churning. Has a shifty little shoulder drop before contact to make defenders miss. 3rd fastest running back at the Senior Bowl, 19.8 miles per hour. Isn't going to be lighting up the league with crazy plays, but he's a front-on style. He's tough to stop. There is a player here, not necessarily a mega production lead back, but he will contribute. Could be really strong RB2. Has an injury history, an ACL, a broken hand, and a stress fracture in his toe. So that's something that has to be considered there with Adam Randall. But a good player. I don't think he's somebody that I want to sort of pin my hopes on the Seahawks running game on. But if you already had a back and you wanted a complement in round 4, I think he'd be an option.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I look at him. He would be a guy that you could bring in, be an effective, explosive kind of potential addition to the running back room just because of that receiver background. You can put him in. You could probably do some things with him that you might not be able to do with anyone else, which is truly split him out wide in some of those sets as a true receiver and let him go to work that way. So, no, he's an interesting prospect for sure. And we got one last one here. Jeffrey, it's my birthday tomorrow. Well, happy birthday, Jeffrey. Enjoy whatever your day is. I don't know how old you're turning, but hopefully it's not older than me or Rob here, and you get to actually enjoy it.
Don't enjoy a birthday anymore.
Yeah. I don't even, sometimes I even forget when it's my own birthday, to be honest with you, Rob. I'm just like, I'm so wrapped up in other things. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm just another year older here. So, here's a good one at the end here. I'm just going to bring this up. Bryce and Rob, do you think the Seahawks will trade Christian Haynes?
It depends on the size of the ham sandwich that you're getting in exchange for him. I'm afraid he has no trade value at this point. So I think it'd be hard. You might be able to do a little player swap for somebody on another team who's equally as disposable. But he just hasn't taken any step forward, has he? And even with the coaching changes, he hasn't. They don't talk about him. There seems to be no buzz around him. I feel for him a little bit because it just hasn't worked.
Yeah.
But I think the problem I have, Bryce, I don't know if this is just the keeping things secret very well, but there seems to be very little buzz about the guys who are not starting on the offensive line. And if they were, you'd feel as if they were talking some of these guys up if they were suddenly going to steal the job of Anthony Bradford.
The only one that I'd heard through people I know that are connected to the Seahawks was Bryce Cable. Benton does really like him, but I haven't heard enough buzz to think, hey, Bryce Cable is going to take the job from Anthony Bradford next year. I think maybe out of that group that they've got, they look at him as potentially, maybe year 3 is when he actually viably can push. But I think if, a Rutledge or even a Dunker or, one of these guys, a Willis is there and he's ahead of any of those guys that you currently have in your, stockpile, then maybe that's where you do take that, Carver and you put him in there and say, hey, go compete, see what happens.
Yeah, potentially so.
All right, Rob. Well, I've kept you for longer than I initially expected just due to the time difference. So, Rob, why don't you let my listeners know what else you've got going on, what you got coming up on Seahawks Draft Blog, what are you writing, and as well as your show Seahawks Collected there with Hawk Blogger and Michael Sean Ducar.
So there's a lot going on the blog at the minute. Like there's a review on Jonah Coleman and Carver Willis on the blog today. But I cover everything, like the endless scouting notes. So the notes that I've been reeling off and talking about here, they're all going up on the blog. It's been drip fed. So I publish the write-ups gradually and will keep doing between now and April. So if you want those, you can check them out. I'll be doing mock drafts. I'll be doing articles. Any thoughts on the offseason, they'll be on SeahawksDraftBlog.com. It is a free blog. There's no adverts on there, so you're not gonna have any issues with that when you're trying to flick through things, and all of a sudden you get an ugly advert blocking everything and stuff like that. There's no paywall, so I would just say, as I always do to everybody, it is a lot of work in my free time. So if you would bless me by checking it out and making it all worthwhile, it'd be much appreciated.
And links for all of Rob's stuff will be down below. Also, check out Curtis Allen's stuff over on Seahawks Draft Blog as well. He does a great job with the cap write-ups and everything that he does. He's one of the best at it. So head on over there. So, Rob, thanks so much for your time, and we'll definitely have you back on the show here, maybe just after the draft.
Yeah, anytime, Bryce. Loved it. No problem.
All right. Talk to you later, Rob.
See you.
All right, guys, that was guest Rob Staton joining us here on the Hawks Eye. And if you guys haven't had a chance to see our 2 mock drafts, head on over there, watch the show at YouTube from the start. It'll be up there later today after the show's ended. As well, if you guys haven't already, subscribe to the channel. You guys can head over to the QR code up there in the corner of the screen. That'll bring you to the Hawks Eye Discord. So if you guys aren't a part of the Discord community, head on over there, join up with that. It's a great community. There's tons of stuff going on regularly in there. It'll also give you kind of some insight in some of the other things that will be coming on the show later on. Like this week, I have Brandon Kane from the Hawks Nest, fellow member of the Seahawks Syndicate, joining the show. Me and him are going to kind of take some deep dives into who we think are our 25 favorite prospects for the Seahawks, as well as do a couple mock drafts. So that'll be live 7 p.m. It'll be live at 4:45 p.m. on Friday. So guys, make sure you check that out as well. And I will start doing more, live shows in regards to draft prospects. The Hawks Eye also now, everyone, is a live show only. I will very rarely be doing recorded episodes. Everything will be coming live, so you'll be able to check it out as soon as it's done. So make sure you guys head over there and get all caught up on everything like that. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed today's show. And as always, stay loud, be proud, and go Hawks. Have a good day, everybody.